Hello.
How you doing?
Good. January's finally over. Hallelujah.
I know.
All 97 days of it.
I'm looking forward to kind of the flowers start coming out and the plum trees.
I saw a cherry blossom.
You did?
Yesterday.
Oh, great.
It happened.
I love it.
Hallelujah.
I love it. It makes me happy because okay, spring is coming.
It's coming. All the little buds are starting to show up on the trees.
One time I went to like Iowa and it was like late April and it was still like winter. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Sorry, Iowa.
Sorry, Iowa. Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
So one thing in the news going on right now, did you see this article about these two, I don't want to call them pinheads, but they're
Tell us how you really feel.
These two academics, and they're proposing, they're in the the space of Social Security, trying to help Social Security. And they're saying that we should take away all the tax benefits that are given to people for putting money in their 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, all that. And so that would generate about 1.3% of GDP more tax revenue for the government, and they could use that to spend on Social Security.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I think that a lot of politicians are going to be fired or not voted back in office if they actually try that.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting solution that would solve the issue at hand. It's not the only possibility.
No.
And I think really we're setting people up to fail if we do that, because many people do the 401k, especially because of the tax deduction.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So I don't think that's probably a non-starter, but
and it makes a big difference to a lot of us.
It does.
That tax deduction.
Because, you think you're in a high tax bracket when you're working and then you're going to be in a lower one later. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's what people think. And so we have one client of ours that when he starts taking his distributions, which he's been, saving for years and years and years, he and his wife, their first RMD is going to be $350,000. So they're not going to be in a lower bracket.
No,
right?
that for most people, once you're over 73, if you saved right and you've replaced your income, you're in a higher tax bracket.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Solutions. I mean, I think so. The other solutions that have been out there that nobody's, willing to vote in basically are, raising the full retirement age, not for you,
right,
but for like my children who are currently 8 and 5, make it 70. It won't even, they're going to work that long anyway. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
You could also raise the taxable wage base. That's capped right now. And I could be paying more Social Security taxes on my wages.
Yeah.
So I think there are like minimal impact options that we should probably implement first.
Exactly. So anyway, we got to keep our eye on that stuff because people will sneak those things in and they get lives of their own. So
if
you don't like it, tell your congressperson and senator you don't like it. Okay. Well, welcome to A Place of Possibility. I am Richard Del Monte.
I'm Angela Wright.
We're grateful to have you here with us today. What are we talking about today?
Well, first of all, everything that we talk about on this show is for educational purposes only. No discussions of past performance should be mistaken for guarantees of future results. And you should always talk to your own advisors before considering implementing anything we talk about on this show.
But you didn't say that fast enough. Yeah, right.
Well, I speed it up in post editing.
Yeah, fine.
So today we are going to discuss moving out of California, which has pretty much become a dream for a lot of Californians, both young and old. And we'll discuss the various reasons with our guests, but the figures and anecdotal data are telling. The New York Times reported that people leaving California outnumbered newcomers by more than 700,000 people between April of 2020 and July of 2022. And I think almost everybody has that friend that is working from home and moved to Hawaii or Iowa or one of those places.
Nevada.
Yeah. And so California's move out numbers reached a record 407,000 between July 2021 and 2022 in 1 year. And in 2022 alone, more than 343,000 people left California. That's the highest exodus of any state in the U.S. in history.
Yeah.
And, you know the reasons. You've got
we hear them.
Yeah. Cheaper homes, lower cost of living, lower taxes in other states, rising crime in California, dissatisfaction with politics, desire maybe for a more relaxed, family-friendly lifestyle. I watched that homesteading show. There's just lots of reasons that people would do this and a lot of interest.
Yeah.
So today we're going to discuss that with our guest.
Good.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about everything. You might want to know if you're considering a move out of California. How do you choose a state? What is the cost of living? What factors do you need to consider?
Yeah.
And so much more. So our guest today, I'm super excited to have our friend Lucien Cazanave. Cazanave. Did I get it
You
right?
did great. You did great.
Thank you so much. He's of Keller Williams Realty in Oakland. Lucien was born and raised in San Francisco and has called the Bay Area home his entire life. He's lived and worked in the East Bay since graduating from UC Davis and getting his first job on an ambulance. The next 20 years were spent serving the Oakland community as a firefighter and getting to know every neighborhood's unique character and charm. He likes to say he's probably driven down every street in Oakland.
Wow.
Lucien has gone through his own real estate journey over the years, beginning as a first-time home buyer, second time personally renovating a duplex with a friend, and then buying again with his wife, and yet another again when child number 2 arrived. He's helped his parents downsize home, navigate rising and falling markets, dealt with trust and probate property issues, rental homes, renovations large and small, and commercial real estate investing. With a bevy of experiences to draw from, Lucien can meet clients where they are on their own real estate journey and act as a trusted resource.
Whew, that is a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
This
It
is
sounds-
your
it sounds
guy.
great, though.
If you're considering moving out of state, I think you know
Yeah.
all the ins and outs.
Yeah. Lucien, sorry.
I was just going to say, thanks for being here with us.
For
Yeah,
sure.
no,
Thank
thanks
you.
for
Welcome.
having me.
Welcome. We have lots of questions, but first, how'd you get interested in this part of the real estate market and become knowledgeable about it?
Well, so I guess getting back to my earlier career as a firefighter, the last position I held was at the training division. I would train people how to drive fire engines. But one of my duties down there was also every time someone retired, I would collect their gear. And so I'd have to fill out a little sheet, make sure they turned everything in. And I would always ask them, so what's your plan? What are you doing next? And it was very interesting, a very, very wide range of responses. But a lot of them were talking about moving out of state, or at least considering it. And when I switched careers into real estate, it kind of made me think, maybe there's something there. Maybe if I could do the research, do the legwork, find out what the ins and outs of moving out of state really entailed. What are some things that people need to consider before they do it? Maybe then I could be a resource to other, first responders that are thinking of doing the same kind of thing when they retire. So that's really kind of what started the whole idea.
Got it.
That's really neat.
And there's lots of people in the first responder community that move out of state.
It seems to be a pretty popular choice. Again, and there are certain states, and we'll get into it, but there are certain states that won't tax your pension. And so there's, financial benefits to doing it that way as well. And then there's, of course, all the lifestyle choices that, if people are into the outdoors, if they want to hunt, if they have certain things that they like to do, maybe it's easier to do outside of California than, living in the middle of Oakland, for instance, so.
For sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how does someone considering leaving the state even begin to decide on the state that they're moving into? Like step one, how do we even start to think about this?
I think the first step is really not even about the state. It's about yourself, right? It's about what kind of, if you're going for retirement, like what do you want your retirement to look like, right? Are you going to be an RV driving across all 50 states? Do you want to live somewhere where every day is like a staycation at your home and you live somewhere sunny? Do you want somewhere that's central so you can fly because you want to travel all over the world, right? It all kind of depends on your own reasons and lifestyle choices, right? So that's the first part. A lot of people, I think, start thinking about it immediately. They start thinking about tax benefits and where is it cheaper to live and those kind of things, which are important, right? Because that allows you to afford to do the things you want to do. But I really do think it starts with the lifestyle choices that you want to make, and really digging deep on what does that mean. And I think the best way to do that is really you have to get the experience of another area first. What it's like to live there. What are the summers like? What are the winters like? Are there allergies that you have to worry about? That just the day-to-day life stuff that you might not consider when you're just looking at who has the lowest property taxes. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is interesting. I never thought about being close to an international airport. Like a lot of people say, oh, I want to travel, but then they also want to homestead. Okay, you're now 5 hours minimum or a flight from the closest airport and you want to travel regularly.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you have a big property, who's going to take care of it when you're going on your 2-week vacation across Europe or something like that, right? There's just other little things to consider. So
yeah.
So would you, thinking about lifestyle and allergies and weather, would you tell someone to like travel out during each season? I mean, take at least a year to make this choice, or how, what's a feasible way?
I think if it's a place you're seriously considering about upping and moving, because a lot of times too, it depends on your family situation. If you're leaving friends and family here to go somewhere else, that's a really big decision. And so it's not something that you should make based off of a weekend you spent there in the summer or something, right? I would recommend taking your time to really kind of explore what that area has to offer. If it really is the type of place you want to be in the summer versus the winter, allergies, whatever it might be. And I think that really does have you're right, exactly right. Like those are things you don't necessarily think about when you're just looking at the average temperature on a website or something like that.
Right. I used to have to travel to Minneapolis for work a lot, like conferences and such, and they were always in August. And I, stupid. I was in my early 20s. Minneapolis is amazing. I'm going to move here. The weather's so great. It's a beautiful place. Someone's like, you should visit in January. I think you'll change your mind.
Yeah. And it's funny. I watch those people coming off their porch, like they're somewhere in the Midwest, and they end up landing on their back because they slipped on ice. And I'm like, I am never letting that happen to me.
Right.
I am not going to take that chance.
Those are all big factors, right? Like, there's a reason why your pool is completely enclosed when you live in Florida, right? Because there's bugs and other things that are going to be such a nuisance that you have to do that. So, just
I always wondered why people in Florida would enclose their pools. It's not a weather choice; it's a bug choice.
It's a critter choice. Yeah, no, there's things that might also want to spend some time in your pool. So
like a gator if you're closer to a lake or something. Yeah, crazy. When you see people making these decisions, what are the most important factors they tend to make decisions based on?
Well, so, obviously, I think the first one that people are going to think of when they even start to consider this is the cost of living, right? That's going to be something that they want to know what the differences are. If you just want to get like a really rough idea of what that's going to be, what the differences might work out to, there's plenty of online calculators. You can go and look up kind of what the cost of living is. I like to use Forbes just because it's pretty straightforward, easy to use, and you can compare the city you're moving from to another city. And it'll pump out, average prices on groceries, gas, housing, healthcare costs, those kind of things. And it'll give you a percentage difference based on the city you're in versus the city you're moving to. And so I think to get like a very generalized idea, that's a very good first step just to kind of get an understanding. I did a little homework before this interview here, and just looking at some of the most popular places Californians are moving. Just to kind of give you an idea. So if you're moving from Oakland to say Phoenix or Dallas, say it's about a 1/3 less expensive to be really, really rough in general.
And that's overall, like when you combine, like in some places, you have higher property taxes, but no income tax, for example, or something.
Right. And again, these things take all these different calculators are kind of measuring different data points. And so you'd have to really dig in to find exactly how they're calculating it and if they're taking taxes into account, all those kinds of things. But when you're just, comparing a gallon of milk in California to Texas or a gallon of gas, those numbers are pretty easy to see the differences. So
the third.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a third. That's a lot.
It comes out. And Florida is not quite as cheap. It's about 17% lower. And then another area that I've heard a lot of people talk about is Memphis. And so I looked at that one. And Memphis is actually 50% lower cost of living. Yeah,
50%.
Wow.
I think a big part of that's the housing cost, right? But Tennessee has other benefits as well, tax wise and stuff that we can talk about as well. But there are some benefits to moving outside of California.
Don't they have tornadoes there too? Yeah.
That goes to all the other things that you need to consider, right? And that's one of the big ones too, is what is the chance of having like a big natural disaster or even just severe weather events where you're moving? If I forget what the record was, but in Arizona, didn't they just have like 20 or 30 days in a row where it's over 115 every day?
I think that was last year. They hit a record of some kind.
Yeah. So something like that, you might want to know about that, right? If you're going to be
you might.
Yeah.
You can't go barefoot outside very easily. What about the ones that we see people going to all the time, like Texas, Idaho, and maybe like Nevada?
A lot of Idaho and Nevada.
Yeah.
Idaho and Nevada are, again, they're both going to be cheaper. They both have different pros and cons. And when you really start to look into this, it's a kind of a very, I don't want to say difficult to navigate, but it's complicated, right? So you definitely need to talk to your professionals that are in your corner, your financial planners, your CPA, and really kind of see how it would affect your particular situation, because there is a wide range of tax implications, right? Whether it's state income tax, some states don't have any, some don't have any for your retirement income, but they do for other things. Some have various levels of that, and so you have to take that into consideration. Also with property tax, that can be a big deal. And we can talk about housing in a little bit too, but there's variables as far as the insurance rates and those things for different areas as well. So all of that combined is what kind of equates to your cost of living as well.
Yeah. Wow. Well, can we talk a little bit about housing since you brought it up? I think that's a really nice segue.
Sure.
That's most of our biggest expense. And I think it's the thing that drives most people out of California.
Right. Right.
What are people looking at? And
well, again,
how do you go about thinking about it?
it kind of goes with your lifestyle choice, right? Do you want to move out because you can afford a bigger house finally with some land? That's something that you wanted to always have. You wanted, 50 acres that you could either hunt or ride a horse or dirt bike on or whatever your, chosen recreation is. That's one thing. If you're doing it for retirement, you also kind of have to consider though that you could sell your house in California and buy something like that, but the same lifestyle factors are going to come into play. As you age, are you going to be able to take care of that property? If you move from your 1,000 square foot house here to a 3,000 square foot house somewhere else, just because you can afford it, now you have to take care of a 3,000 square foot house that's 2 stories.
Toilets to scrub.
Who's going to clean it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so these are all like the realities of these things that, like, I think a lot of people, when you kind of daydream about it, it seems great, but when the reality of it hits, it's like, well, we didn't consider this, we didn't consider that. So those are the factors that I think you need to take into consideration. That being said, you can buy a lot more house in other states, right? You could sell your house here, buy a house all cash somewhere else that could be bigger than the one you have here, and then just live on the extra funds, invest that, and that could take care of a lot of your living expenses. So there is the advantage of that for sure.
Are you seeing the same housing insurability issues in other states that we're facing here in California, like with fire insurance, for example?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of a nationwide thing. I think the insurance companies are spreading the cost of that kind of across everyone to try to help mitigate that. But Florida actually has the highest. I want to say the review that I looked at said that the average insurance cost across the country is about $1,700. Florida was the highest in the country at $4,500. And lately, it's been going up a lot the last few years specifically. So, and again, I think that's the increased risk of severe weather over there is a problem. I think the insurance companies are starting to factor in a little bit of climate change into their considerations. But we're facing the same thing here in California, right? Depending on where you live, if you're in a high fire zone, it can be very, very difficult to get insurance nowadays. Luckily, California has you covered that you're going to get care no matter what, but it comes at a price, right? So that's a problem, not just here, but in other parts of the country as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which state has the cheapest housing insurance? Do you recall from the list?
I don't know who the cheapest is. I would imagine somewhere in the Midwest that doesn't get tornadoes would probably be the best. But again, it's those things you don't consider. You live in Texas, you get a hailstorm that dents your car all up. Now you're paying higher car premiums because something like that
happened. I've had that happen to me.
Really?
Oof, scary.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Like baseball size. Yeah. Puts big dents in your car, breaks your windshield.
We're kind of soft living California when it comes to that kind of, you don't even realize those are even options.
So, no, I would never have thought of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about tax implications, because most people think about, income tax, like we're going to not pay state income tax if we go to Florida. But, I think they don't think about, like, they're going to get you one way or the other, like if they have low tax rates for income, maybe they're going to have higher sales tax or higher property tax. Are there studies that show like what the lowest overall tax rates are in general in certain states? I mean,
I've looked at one, and it kind of laid out the lowest tax rates are going to be the effective tax rates, I guess, are the states that don't have any income tax, right? They're the ones that have the lowest effective tax rate, I believe. And those still manage to be in the I want to say it was 8.6 to 10.7-ish was the range I saw. What is it? It's 9 states that don't have state income tax. And of those, I'm not sure how many people are moving to from California. It's like Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Wyoming, and then Washington State. But they have some exceptions with that there. Those are the places that you're going to see the lowest overall tax basis. Now, along with that, like you said, there are some trade-offs, right? So in Texas, you have the highest effective tax rate for property tax, which is going to be, a problem. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize too, you get spoiled being in California because your tax rate is set once you buy the house. It's kind of a fixed cost. It goes up very, very minimally. Other states, it can be reassessed on a semi-annual basis. So every few years it gets reassessed. So that means if a bunch of people move into your neighborhood and property values go up, guess what? You get reassessed. All of a sudden your property taxes are going up. And they're already a little bit over twice as high as they would be in California, right? So, month to month costs.
We're not just driving the property values up; we're driving their tax payments up.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's it.
We're turning red states purple and all that kind of stuff too. They don't like.
Yeah. So your monthly payment could be about the same, right? If you buy a smaller house in Texas, but with the property tax, your monthly payment to California could be almost the same or very similar.
Yeah. I think many people only look at the sale price of the house on that.
Yeah.
So, especially my friends. We're moving to Texas. I'm like, hey, look at this.
I still say the sweet spot to be is Southern Washington, because right near the border, like Vancouver, because you can have no income tax and then go over the border and have no sales tax buying things in Oregon.
Right. Have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Unless you're a small business person, and then you have to pay that. They have a business tax in Washington. So
taxes. So they're going to get you.
They're going to get you.
You really need to understand all of the various taxes you could pay. So you're looking at, so there's sales tax, your own income tax, estate tax.
Remember
Oregon. It gets you on the estate tax.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's especially important if you're retiring and moving to Oregon.
Yep.
That's the other thing. Property, local taxes.
Yep.
So
actually, I was going to say on the state taxing, Hawaii and Washington is 20% on the state tax. So moving to Hawaii for your retirement might 20%.
Hawaii is brutal.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Hawaii is brutal because you have not only do you have the high state tax, but your cost of living there is enormous. I mean, just the cost of getting all of the goods over there, unless you're subsisting off the land, you better increase your budget significantly.
Better enjoy sugar cane.
Lowest property tax though. So there you go. It all
highest property values.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about healthcare. If we could switch gears away from the glorious taxes and into healthcare, I think a lot of people say, well, that's not going to change. I have Medicare. It's the same all over the country. Talk to us about what people need to consider for healthcare.
When you're considering healthcare, it's one of those things where, again, it's hard to kind of quantify what like good healthcare is. There's a bunch of different groups that try to do it. They use different metrics to kind of rate hospital systems and quality of care and outcomes and all these things. So there's, it's a kind of a wide range of results based off of different, obviously they're using different data points, right? So generally speaking, good healthcare, you're going to find better healthcare in bigger metro areas. That's just, you have better access. There's more doctors, there's more facilities, there are higher tech facilities. The further out you go, again, if that dream of living on a horse ranch far out from the city is great until you fall down and break your leg, and now it's a 4-hour, ambulance ride into the city to get emergency or helicoptered or whatever it is, right? So those, again, other things to consider, especially as you're aging. If you're doing this for retirement, everyone in their mind is still 30 years old, but as your body ages, things are going to change, and something eventually will happen where you have to probably access healthcare, and it could be an issue if you're farther out.
Yep.
Oh man.
Good point.
Something about, like the cost of your Medicare in some plans, it's tied to the county that you live in, and that can vary widely. So pricing out your new Medicare plan where you're going is important.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
No, talk to an insurance provider for sure to see kind of what's out there. And I mean, again, speaking from the first responder world, I think Kaiser is kind of like the standard issue insurance that everyone has. And you would probably have to find a new provider if you go somewhere else. They only operate in a few states. The West Coast, Virginia, like DC, there's just a few spots that they operate in the rest of the country. And so you just have to make the decision that you're going to be, probably finding a whole new healthcare system to work in.
That's a good point. Many people here in the Bay Area use Kaiser.
Yeah. I never thought about this before very much, but lately I've been thinking, boy, I appreciate living near a trauma center, for a hospital. Like they've got, a high level trauma center where if anything happens to you, you're having a stroke or something, they can fix you. Rather than, we don't know. Sorry, we're sitting
10 minutes from John Muir.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, and from my emergency medicine days, I mean, there's certain treatments, again, if the time is of the essence, if you're 30 minutes from a trauma center, much higher chance of having a good outcome than if you're 2 hours away, they can't give you the same medication or treatment.
For sure.
The other thing I want to...
The game
is that the magic window, 30 minutes?
Well, for stroke medication, that's going to be kind of where you want to be. But the other,
that's right, you're a paramed, huh? I forgot.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of experience with that. But the other thing I want to talk about is, so as you age, again, like senior care is another part of the healthcare, continuum that you need to maybe consider. And outside of California, there might be a different kind of number of senior living options. Senior care communities, different levels of care, different costs. It's probably going to be cheaper, but maybe not, depending on where you end up, right?
The cost,
and the different levels of in-home care that are available. So other things to maybe kind of consider.
And the availability of medical beds, let's say, in a nursing facility.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're in a smaller county, there might not be any beds available.
Yeah. And we're seeing things like we have a client that's in San Francisco that's paying $11,000 a month for or whatever it is, some kind of a board and care thing, and then Another one that's in Roseville paying $6,000 for the same care. That's amazing. That's a huge difference in cost.
Right. And again, it's one of those things too, where there's the financial side of it where you just look at the numbers. But I always recommend anyone who's going to be looking into senior care that they would talk to a senior placement agent, which is kind of like a real estate agent, but for senior care communities. Right. And so they really know the different communities. They really know the ins and outs of the staff that work there, the levels of care. And then once they get to know you, they can kind of guide you maybe to, or offer you, these are probably the best fits for you for what you need and what you can afford. And they really help kind of facilitate getting people into the right spots. So that's someone I would definitely, especially if you're moving to a new area and you don't have any connection to it already. I think that's a great first person to talk to if that's something you're looking at.
That's a good point.
I think people tend to overlook this sometimes, or maybe they think of it's lower on the scale, but the community and social opportunities, what kind of community are you in? Is it a friendly community? What kind of social opportunities do you have to meet and get to know people? And also, is your family going to be there, or your friends that you already know? It gets lonely, I think, out there by, someplace like if I moved to Tennessee, I don't know anybody. Seems challenging.
Yeah, that'd be hard for you.
Yeah.
You're a social creature.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you tell people there?
Well, again, it goes back to, you're an outsider, right? So is it hard to get established? What kind of lifestyle are you looking to have in retirement out there? There's been studies that really show how much social interaction plays a key part in aging well and keeping your wits about you and all those things. And so, it's a huge part of it. Getting back to the taxes thing, certain states that have maybe a lower tax base, they might not have the funding for as many senior facilities, senior communities, senior events, senior resources that maybe California would have, right? And so that's another thing to maybe kind of consider. But those are the things that you really need to take a look at. Is there a group for you to kind of be a part of in this new area that you're moving to, especially as you age? Are you in an area where there's a lot of older people to begin with, or is it kind of more younger family kind of place? That could be a lot lonelier in a lot of ways if you're older yourself. So
that's a really good point. And I could see people doing things like, go to church in the community that you're considering, if that's important to you, or to go into the gym or whatever you like to do, see what those communities are like in the areas you're considering.
Yeah,
exactly.
Are there other ways to check that out without moving there, or
without traveling?
Yeah.
Well, I always recommend talking to a local realtor. Find the best one you can in that area. They should have a very good working knowledge of the different neighborhoods, the character of the different neighborhoods, what amenities are around. And if, you find one with a designation for working with seniors, they would probably have a little bit more insight as to kind of what the community events are that would support, other senior individuals.
Can you tell us how someone would go about finding a good realtor in the area? Because I could Google that, but let's say I'm a 65-year-old, I know nothing about the area, and I Google best realtor. How do I actually find the best realtor in the area?
You can call the local market centers. Like, so for me, for Keller Williams, I'm here. The way I would start would be I would talk to other people within Keller Williams and say, hey, who's a very high producer with a great reputation in this city, right? So I would talk through my own network. So if you have a realtor that you love and trust in your local area now, that'd be the first person I would talk to, because they have the resources and the connections to maybe find the right person, whether it's with their company or someone else, but someone that's really well respected in that new area that can kind of lead you to the right direction.
And what is that senior designation you mentioned? What should they look for?
So there's a senior real estate specialist designation. It means that someone's been trained to work with seniors. They kind of understand some of the main issues and concerns if someone's elderly moving to a new area, what they might be looking for. Someone who's downsizing or right sizing is the new term that people like to use. But they'd be just aware of those kinds of concerns that a new client might have and be able to kind of speak to those a little bit better.
Yeah.
What about safety and security? I think you can hear like anecdotally, oh, it's a really safe place. But then you go on some of those websites and you see, like the crime rate, the robberies and stuff are, higher or off the charts,
Right. So my official answer is always, crime is kind of it's all based off what you're used to, right? If you live somewhere and you've never had to deal with it, you're out in the country and you leave your front door unlocked all the time, moving to a city that on the crime report statistics places is still pretty low might seem like a big change for you, and having your car broken into would be a big deal versus other parts of other cities where that's not that big of a deal compared to some of the other
Yeah.
things that are going on, right? So it's all kind of relative, and it's all kind of what you're used to and willing to kind of accept. That being said, there's, again, a good realtor would probably know kind of the vibe of a city and kind of what areas may or may not be sketchier than others in that sense. There's lots of online resources you can go to as well. One in particular that I've heard of, I think it's Crime Spot. You can sign up, you put your email in there, and then it will report to you. You put an address in, it'll report to you any crimes reported within a certain area around there.
Oh, that's good.
Straight to your emails. And so you can kind of at least, get an idea of what is going on in that area. But again, there's nothing beats going there and just being there yourself, right? And kind of seeing for yourself what is and isn't a big issue for you. You kind of asked earlier about how to best try out an area. And my advice and the kind of system that I kind of tell people to use is, Airbnb is great. Maybe go take an Airbnb and stay there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or maybe stay in multiple ones around the city to get different ideas of maybe where you like to be, what the vibe of the different parts of the city are. And, there's even maybe a tax benefit of maybe you don't sell your house in California right away. Maybe you just you rent an apartment in an area that you want to try out for a couple years. Once you've been out of your home for a couple years, it becomes a rental officially. Maybe there's a 1031 into a new home. You can try to, again, talk to your CPA about how it works, but there might be ways that you can slowly move into a new area, get a feel for it, and also reap some tax benefits of doing
Interesting.
Like
Yeah. I did have, I've seen realtors in certain areas that just put up YouTubes all the time. They talk about the different areas of their area, their city or larger metro area that are better than others, which ones have the good schools, and you get a good sense. They show videos and stuff,
Yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Right.
If you can believe them.
Well, always do your research, right? Always do. It's a big decision, right? Moving to a new place is always a big decision. So,
yeah.
So what haven't we asked you about that you like to walk people through or help them consider?
Well, getting back to the downsizing and right sizing, I think that's a big part of it as well, too. Just the move itself, the logistics, those are things that I don't think people think of a lot. But if you are downsizing your home, say you do have a larger home now and you want to move to maybe a condo in a new city so that you have more flexibility, you don't have to worry about taking care of your roof and your yard and those things. What does that look like for you? Are you just going to sell all your possessions and buy new ones when you get there? There's certain moving companies that will actually, if you give them a floor plan from your new apartment that you're renting, they will kind of see what of your furniture that you currently have will fit, do a floor plan for you and just move that portion of your belongings and you can get rid of the rest.
Huh.
That's neat.
I thought all they did was break everything.
Well, I mean,
that's or things like, you have to register your car in the new state. That could be costly.
Right. And then establishing your new domicile, right? Because I think some people think too, I'm going to move out of California, but I'll keep an apartment here or I'll keep my house maybe, and I'll just go back and forth. And the important thing to remember is that state of California is very serious about if you are here on a decent number of days out of the year, if you're earning money in California, guess what? You're going to pay taxes in California still. So establishing your domicile in a different state, there's some rules you need to follow. There's certain things that they kind of, I guess, look for, setting up a new driver's license. Where do you keep your pets? If your pet dog still stays in California, guess what? They're going to think you still probably live in California. So where do you go to the doctor? Where do you vote? All those kind of things can come into effect, right? Where's your bank? If you have a business, are you business? Did you move it over to the new state as well? So all these kind of things that I think, maybe people don't think about when they just think about leaving the state.
And it's 2 years, right, to establish domicile?
Generally 2 years. And there's the 6 month and a day rule, which I've heard isn't the only thing, right? You can't just do 6 months plus 1 day doesn't effectively mean that you live somewhere. Again, because of those other things, if you're business or if you're earning income in another state in California specifically, they're going to try to come and take their taxes back. So
I've read court cases where they actually track people's cell phones where they were broadcasting.
No way.
Yeah. To see where you actually were. You say you were home in, Tennessee, but you were actually in California.
Game the system
people,
anymore.
Or
some insurance companies put the tracker on your car.
Yeah,
if you're safe now, and then they know where you are.
Yeah. So if you want to do that, you want to play that game, you got to get a burner phone.
Oh, or just don't pay taxes, maybe.
Yeah.
So what does the process of working with you look like? If somebody is like, hey, Lucien, I want to move out of state.
Well, so I've tried to systematize it. The idea is, if you did want to move out of state, we start talking about, well, again, like I said at the beginning, what's your lifestyle? What are you trying to do? Have you already thought about all these kind of other factors besides just either want a big house, want a cheaper house, whatever it is? And it just, it's like if you were looking for a house with me, let's find out what you really want. What are your needs? What problems are we solving by doing this? Once we have those things figured out, then we can kind of apply the finances to it and say, okay, well, what makes the most sense? Because, the lifestyle thing might be met in several different areas, right? So then financially, which ones make the most sense? And then once that's kind of established, it's the how do we figure out if that's really the right spot for you, right? So that's when you start to go and visit. Maybe you rent an apartment for a while, maybe get a month-to-month rent, so you can kind of just be there for a while. And we go into the whole process of slowly moving out that way. And then what are we doing with your home in California? Are we selling it now? Are we waiting? Are we turning it into a rental? What are the other options that you have for you at that point? So
it would be amazing to have a guide like you on this journey.
Yeah, for sure.
My gosh. Any other questions?
No, good. This was very helpful.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Great
This
interview.
comes up
Thank
all
you.
the time with our clients. And guys, if you're looking for someone to help you through this transition, Lucien is definitely your guy. He knows all of the ins and outs, as you've seen today, and given us so many things to think about, like that we normally wouldn't. So Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's great.
Thank you.
And we'll have your contact information in the show notes for anyone that wants to look you up.
Awesome.
Thank you. Gosh, well, thank you everyone for being here. This is an awesome topic. Please let us know if you have any questions about moving out of state. We'd be happy to help. On that note, if you have any comments, questions, or topic ideas, you can always reach out to us at info@aplaceofpossibility.com. If you'd like to schedule a consultation to discuss your own finances, you can do that by clicking on the link in the show notes to schedule a meeting. We are still offering a free copy of our electronic book, The Investment Answer, which is essentially a primer on how we manage portfolios, but it's a really great, easy read. So if you want to know how that sausage is made, get yourself a copy of that book. Please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening, and we'll see you next time.
That's it. That wraps up this episode. Thank you very much for being here. Until next time, remember, you're invested and so are we.